For this installation, I was responding to the space and trying to challenge the symmetry and the formal, the very ordered classical architecture. I am referencing tradition, but also showing the fragile state that tradition can sometimes be in. So I was looking at those characteristics of what makes an Ionic column. And then I went on to look at the Corinthian columns. So that's when I was drawn to the excess and the growth that happens at the top of the Corinthian columns and wanted to mimic that, take some of those elements of decoration but almost do an over-decoration where there's too much and it's sort of hard to even see the details in the work because it's so textured. For this show, I wanted to explore a range of different materials that have their own sort of character and personality. So I used materials from wax to burnt timber to steel bolts. There's pyrite in there. There's a ceiling rose, a Medusa head. There's deflated balloons, and all of the materials that I chose have a sense of temporality. You know, wax melts, it's elastic, it's the opposite of a statue or a monument. With classical sculpture, you see these sculptures with animal bodies and men kind of wrestling, bodies sort of stacked. So I wanted to make the sculpture in that same way where forms feel like they're toppling and leaning. So there's this sense of almost like action that gets contained with scaffolding. So I use that burnt timber as a type of scaffold to hold the activity in. There is always, I think, a rational logic when making sculpture where, you know, you're fighting with things like gravity and balance. With each material comes its own constraints, but for me that is a really great thing because it means that the work can go places that are out of my control. So the constraints are actually a type of freedom. In the making, it's definitely physical, and then in the exhibiting, it's how the body experiences the work. I've thought a lot about how the space will be experienced and how the works will be experienced and how the two are in conversation. I think some of the forms that have a more fragile presence about them, they have almost like limbs where there's a lot of negative space. So it creates a kind of viewing hole or a portal to view other works from. It's the relationship that each work has with the space, but also with each other.